Hello and welcome to the United Devil channel with me, JB. I hope we're all doing really well this evening. Now, I'm back from my holidays. I am not on my shaky phone. Now, some of you may have preferred that, me by a pool in Menorca. But I'm back. I've literally just got back today, just got back tonight. So I thought one of the first things that I would do is jump on with you wonderful people, as I didn't do a stream yesterday. So I hope we're all doing really well this evening in whatever you've done. Cheek Ferb, I hope you're doing really well. My friend told me this is real. Well, I'll get to all that good stuff. Of course I will do. We can discuss it again. One of the things I will say about this channel is that it is fantastic. All these players that I've been putting on these thumbnails for the last couple of days. What's really funny is that we've been talking on here about these players for a very, very long time. I'll give this up to the chat. The chat on here are amazing. Sir Jamie Vargas, welcome, my buddy. My good friend, the legend of the chat. Now, one of the things I will say about here, and the chat will back me up, and if you've been here before, is that I am not a dictator of the chat. Obviously, there is a certain, and I should really put this in to the chat before I begin, is that obviously just be respectful to the chat. Try and keep the profanities down, otherwise you will be blocked. I don't like doing it. I don't like stopping chat. I think it's really important, even if you're from other clubs. I think it's really important that you get your views and opinions on here. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to agree with them. I don't mind you moving the chat around. I've got some things to talk about. I obviously will get that out there as much as I possibly can, and obviously, we can move around, and it's been a little while since I've done this in terms of this, so it's a little bit strange to me, not like holding up a phone, because I find that easier. So obviously, if you are watching, don't forget to give us a like, favorite, and subscribe. It really does help the channel out. Or the PGMOL, don't even get me started on them. They are absolutely disgraceful. I've literally got no time for them whatsoever. So let's get on to this straight away. Without further ado, Angelo Stiller from Stuttgart. Now, we've had a Gourmet mentioned in the last couple of days. So where this is coming from is Jacob's Ben, right? So he's on the United stand. He's quite close to this stuff. So when you're talking about sources, so Ben, he's literally here, there, and everywhere. He's on loads and loads of big channels. In terms of the sort of big couple of tiered reporters as such on this stuff, Ben is up. He's no Fabrizio, he's no Ornstein, but Ben is still very, very credible and very good on this, and he's very, very close to all of this stuff. Funny, JB, how we've been eyeing both these before, believe it. Exactly. So one of the things I'm going to say about this chat, and get into the chat on this one, is that we've been talking about this, and I give it up to the chat, is that Stiller, a Gourmet, has been mentioned on here for quite some time. This is really funny. It's almost like, guys, that they've come on here and they've been reading what you guys have said in to the chat. This is why I believe this community, the people in this chat, are intelligent, come up with, we don't just randomly do things for clickbait, and we don't just randomly talk about any other thing. On here, the chat gets in this stuff, and this is what we do on here. So again, a Gourmet the last couple of days, and now Stiller. So what is quite apparent, and I was going to do a very, very different show tonight in terms of, and I will still go through some of the stuff about the Glazers and how INEOS, I still believe, are failing in this window so far, because there are a couple of other bits and pieces out there that are basically saying that we're not going to make any more signings. There's basically 2 weeks left in the window to try to get these deals done. There's bits on Nana as well. So Stiller, as I said, so this has come from Ben. So Jacob's Ben at X. So Ben has, he's everywhere. He's on the United stand. He's on Stretford Paddock. I think he's everywhere. So he's actually come out and basically said, if I'm going to try to read it word for word instead of reading it verbatim for you. Let me see if I can find it on here. This is a rushed show a little bit tonight. I just wanted to get it on here because I know how happy the chat would be in relation to this. So let me just see what I've got. So Jacobs Ben, so Ben says one of the midfielders that United listed, Stuttgart's Angelo Stiller. No guarantee that anything develops or that any midfielder arrives, but internal discussions taking place over targets. Stiller has come up in discussions, now decided whether or not to sign another midfielder before the window shuts. Now, this may not seem like a big thing. The fact this has been mentioned as well, along with Agume, I do truly believe that this is being pushed by an Amarin, by a Wilcox. And I should tell you where, obviously, there is another side to this as well. But Stiller, and what I have done is what we can do live is we can kind of just look at Stiller's scouting report. This is from FB Ref. So we can just have a little look in real time about kind of what we think about this player, and then we can kind of do a little bit of a comparison with Agume. So Chief Herb said failure, 3 factors: 1, Sancho stays, Garnacho stays, no goalkeeper, but Angelo is going to be a hell expensive. So I don't know if this is going to happen. So again, Chief, what we can do, Chief, and again, great segue into some of the stuff I wanted to talk about tonight, Chief, and I think that's absolutely great. So let's have a look at Stiller now. As Chief says there, he's how expensive do we think that he'll be? So if we're looking at his stats now looking at, so he's a midfielder. More of a defensive midfielder from what I believe that he is. Now, we'll talk about centre midfielders once we've sort of looked at this report, and then I'll tell you what I've heard about Amarin and his style of kind of midfielder, and then we can start to talk about how we think we get this player. So, even if we're looking at things like assists, we're looking at assists on goals, we're looking at shot creation, passes, pass completion, progressive passes, progressive carries, successful take-ons, touches. Now, where Stiller, just by looking at the stats, sort of falls down, and I agree, Chief. I think he's better than Ugarte. Now, if you're doing a comparison in terms of tackles, interception, blocks, that sort of stuff. Now, you may be thinking, okay, we need a defensive midfielder, we need a kind of number 6, and I will put up, just for comparison, I will put up Agume's stats as well, so we can look at them both side by side. And I should tell you for why, in some respects, it doesn't really matter. So Agume, if you're looking at him, assists wise, not as good of assists, but still there or thereabouts. Passes attempted, not as good as Stiller. Successful take-ons, better. Where Agume definitely shines is in the tackling, interception, clearances, and aerials one. So Agume is definitely more of that. I think more of that kind of high tackling, kind of pressing, more of a defensive, even though Stiller is I think he's definitely more of a Tony Cruz type of play. You can clearly see there's a difference between the two players. Stiller is definitely more that kind of, is more that architect, and if you like, number 6, but Agume is definitely more of a defensive style of player. Now, I shall tell you for why, as much as those stats are great, and you can either one of those players for me and to go back to what Chief is saying, the Agume I think will be cheaper and a more defensive option. But I've been looking at bits and bobs and kind of looking at quotes from Amarin in the past, and kind of looking at kind of just different posts from, for example, Sporting Fans. Now, I should tell you for why, in an Amarin system, why it doesn't matter really in terms of are they a number 8, are they a number 6? Because Amorim doesn't really play defensive midfielders. He doesn't really play that number 8. What he does play is what he wants an engine room. So what he wants, as long as Stiller, for example, can get up and down that pitch. So what he wants is he almost wants a box to box. So he wants 2 box to box players. And as we've spoken about on here as well, what Amorim... Are we back? Yes, we are. We are back. We are back. We are back. Let's do this. We're back. Okay, so we are back. Should be back. Should be back. Here we go. I am back. Back in the game. Okay, so. Alright, cool. We're back. So, honestly, first stream, the phone is okay. Now come back to this PC that I built. It's perfectly fine, but the Wi-Fi is worse than what it is in Spain. Anyway, Danny B, legend of the chat. So, what Amorim wants is, it doesn't really matter in some respects about Agume. It doesn't necessarily really matter about Stiller. It doesn't really matter about Belieber. Is that what Amorim wants in his midfielders is he almost wants wingers. And what I mean by that is he wants his centre midfielders, maybe one slightly more defensive and one more attacking, but what he wants from his 2 midfielders is to be up and down that pitch, so up and down that central pitch, back and forth. And that's what he wants. So when we're thinking about Hojlund, we're thinking about a Belieber, we're thinking about a Stiller, we're thinking about an Agume. What we should really be thinking first and foremost about this is what their engines are like, because that is ultimately what he wants. So Agume, for me, if you're looking at engines on a player, now Belieber would have been absolutely perfect. You know, he does have the tackling pace and he can progress the balls forward. But when you then start to delve into those bits of their game, as long as their engine is good, this is what Amorim cares about. So it really doesn't matter in some respects what they are. So you can get a specialist, but Amorim's system relies on 2 centre midfielders running up and down the pitch. So this is why Amorim really wants centre midfielders with pace, because Ugarte right now is definitely not that player. He can get up and down, but his engine is not great. Casemiro, he doesn't have the legs to get forward and get back. So this is why in this system, Amorim is really pushing and fighting for a Stiller, for an Agume, for these players that he determines have this that sort of has this engine in his team. So let me know sort of in the chat if you've watched Stiller play, if you've watched Agume play, and what you kind of think about their engines. And bearing in mind, in my opinion, and maybe it's yours as well, is that Amorim is looking for a centre midfielder with pace. So as it stands, we are definitely looking at midfielders. Whether or not Amorim gets his wish. Now, Ugarte was an Amorim reject. Exactly that. And I agree with that. I don't think he fancies him. Now, with this in mind, this, and I was of the mindset, because I'm sort of old school, right? Whereby you've got your centre midfielder who's more of a sort of ball carrying, playmaking midfielder, and then you've got this defensive number 6. So this is why, in my opinion, I was always, Mainoo maybe wouldn't get in there because he's more of a ball carrying number 8. But it doesn't really matter in this system, because as long as they can get forward and back, I don't think Amorim really cares too much about. Obviously, he wants maybe one more defensive, so then when Euro or when a centre-back pushes up, because he does want his centre-backs to push high up, you can then almost get that midfielder that comes back. Now, Fernandes has been doing it, but he's not a specialist in that, so hence that's why he kind of wants maybe a slightly more defensive centre midfielder. But as we've seen throughout the whole of pre-season and against Arsenal, that Casemiro, Ugarte are not those types. Now, Tulip says, hi JB and hi chat. Hi Tulip, I hope you're doing extremely well this evening. So if you have just joined, Stiller is now being put out there by the club as well as Agume. I will say, and this is going to lead on to the sort of next part to this as well. At the moment, I'm preferring Angelo because I think Šeško needs those crosses in. Šeško is deadly during the counters. Stiller is like Cruz. Exactly what I said. Superb deep line playmaker, not as athletic as would be ideal. Exactly what I said, pretty much. Now, if you kind of missed that bit, what I've been looking around and seeing is I wanted to kind of do a little bit more on this, is that Amrin really, the reason why he's pushing for a midfielder and a certain type of midfielder is because what he cares about more than anything else is an engine room. And Stiller, I think if it's Stiller or nothing, then that's fine. But I think for this system, I think an Agume would work slightly better. But you have a Stiller alongside. Now, I have no idea in terms of price. So price has not been mentioned in regards to this. So we know Agume is going to be roughly about £30 million. I think about 26 to 32 million pounds. Of Stiller, I don't know how much he's going to be. So I don't know at this present moment in time whether or not this is a deal that we're going to do, and then we can kind of go to the side and then maybe talk about the outgoings, which I think are important as well. Chief Earth says, the thing is, Agume is going to bolster our attacks as long as Bruno and Kobe creates while he intercepts that wide. So, and I think it's either going to be, and this is where I think it's really important for us to talk about this, is that where does Mainoo fit into this? So, Jamie Vargas, how much would it take for us to get Stiller to come to United? I also think playing in the Bundesliga is good. I think Stiller could handle the physicality of the Premier League. I don't disagree with that. I think he would be fine. Now, in terms of a price, I don't see a problem since we got off flanks with Ahmad, Mbeumo, Kunyadogi yet. Exactly. So I think what he wants, Chief, is he wants that Stiller would cost a lot. Agume is under 30. Exactly. And I think this is I think these are sort of, now we've got Mbeumo and Acuna, for me, players like Stiller and Agume, I think Agume was definitely one for this year. Stiller may be one for next year. Now, how much would he cost? When we're talking about Bundesliga players, you know, when you're talking about Ekitike for 70 odd million, you know, Šeško for 60 odd up to 70 million. Now, I know they're different players, but when you're looking at a really specialist centre midfielder, they don't seem to be as expensive in the Bundesliga, but I think you're talking north of 50. Now, I think you are talking, you know, if Hojlund's going to go 55, you know, they're looking at that. Do Stuttgart look at Belieber as well? Maybe they think that he's maybe not as much as that. But, you know, if we are talking 55 million, then we need to talk about the next part of this as well. So I think Tulip is right. I think for me, where I am right now, I think Stiller would be a great option. I think he would be fantastic. But I think Agume makes sense to me in terms of the profile of the player, the age as well, the defensive mindedness of him. That's just what I would prefer, but with the ability to get up and down as well. So I think Agume for me is more that I guess he's more that defensive box to box. You know what I think a Brentford would go for. A Brighton would go for potentially. So I think for me, and at that price, I think that makes sense. Nikarastu, I can't even pronounce your name, my friend. I apologise. I believe in Amrin. It's starting to come together from his additions, but genuinely believe we are a goalkeeper, established a midfield away from fighting for the top 5. I don't disagree with you. I think that do you know what? I agree with that. But this really depends on that midfielder. I really believe a midfielder, you're right, for us to get into this top 5, I think Amrin is pushing this hard because he knows what we don't have. I would like to see more depth in there. I think you're spot on the goalkeeper, and there's a little bit on that as well, so we will get through this. I mean, we can go for as long as you like tonight. Make this a longer show because there's so many things on the goalkeeper, so many things that have come out today, so we can go through all of that as well. Let's have a little look. Chivo says the Gume will be better deal and get Belieber next season if we could, or we will. Financially, and Agume is physically stronger. I can't see him fitting in the Prem. Stiller and Belieber would be amazing pair. Stiller this summer, Belieber next. I love these suggestions, and again, this is what I'll always say to you. Even if you don't like me, get into this chat because we have, amongst us all, we have come up with names. So even if you don't get names, the actual transfer right, we've been right on a couple of things, but the names that we mention on here always tend to come up, and that's not a fluke. It can't be a fluke. It's because we logically talk about different things. Now, again, I will flit here and there. Now, Belieber, I truly believe, I really, really believe this, is that if we don't get Champions League next season, Belieber's gone. I think, for me, I think that unless we get Champions League, forget about him. I think that's done. I don't believe that there's an agreement for next season. There's absolutely no way. Brighton will want a war, and for us to be in that war, we basically need to be in the Champions League. We also need to sell players. Now that's a good segue into the next part, and then we can move back to this as well. Chief Herb says if Garnacho or Sancho goes, I'm certain we'll get a Gume. If Hojlund goes as well, we may sneak a Steeler. Chief, so good interception there, or good. So what I wanted to talk about next. So let's talk about where we are, because obviously I've missed a day, and I was on a plane today. The thunderstorm today was absolutely horrific. There was a horrific thunderstorm this morning at about 5:30. Our plane was late by about 2 hours. It was horrific, but I got here in the end. But again, I missed the day as well. So yesterday. So what did we have yesterday? So we had Hojlund. Hojlund to Napoli now seems to be the latest talk of the town, as it was. So Hojlund to Napoli seems to be I think probably logically now the destination for him. So Lukaku is now out for a couple of months. Welcome back. I hope you had a fun vacation. I'm heading to mine next Monday. Where are you off, Chief? I'd love to know where you're off to, my friend. It was great, thank you, mate. It's just, yeah, yesterday I was by Paul, and now tonight I'm back with you lovely people. So, you could argue it's not the same, but I love doing this. So, equally as amazing to me to be here, even if it's not by Paul. But yeah, let me know where you're off to on your vacation. That'd be awesome. So Hojlund to Napoli. So where that makes sense to me right now. So what's his name? It would come to me in a second. So Boniface, that's him. He's gone to AC Milan. So I think AC Milan. Oh, Malaysia. That's going to be humid and absolutely warm as anything. I've been to Malaysia before. Thailand as well, and it's just another level of humidity, another level of heat. So it's going to be amazing. So I hope you have a really amazing time and a safe trip. So Boniface has now gone to AC Milan. So I think that one's done. AC Milan put an offer in. I think Rasmus was kind of what Rasmus wants to do is, no worries, my friend. So the reason why I believe that AC Milan didn't happen for Rasmus. So what Rasmus wants is Rasmus wants to leave the club, but when he leaves the club, he also wants to go with a permanent deal. So what I mean by that is the fact that there needs to be an obligation to buy. So AC Milan wanted him with an option to buy. Now what Rasmus wants to do, and I get it, from his point of view, is that when he goes to a club, I still think United will put out a get out of jail free card for a club like they did with Sancho, where they could pay to send him back. But I think what Rasmus wants is he's saying, look, if I'm going to go, then I basically want to go permanently, because Rasmus seems to love this club. He doesn't want to go. So why would he want to go and then return? Because don't forget, what's going to happen is in the next season, if Rasmus is not involved and Šeško does well, they're basically the same age. So how is Hojlund going to come back into this side? Now, unpopular opinion, but I'd be all over the moon if Hojlund left. I thought Falcao was bad, but Hojlund's way worse. I don't think that's an unpopular opinion at all. I think that's a very valid opinion to have, and I'll give you my opinion on Hojlund as well. I don't think it is an invalid opinion. I think most people feel that way now. So I think for Hojlund, I think it's the best option for him. Whether he was, I will still maintain that I think we did Hojlund a disservice asking him to lead the line at 19, 20 years old. There's very few players in the world that can do that. Like Yamal can do that, even though he's not a striker, Messi, Ronaldo, but Ronaldo couldn't do it at that age. I can't remember if Messi was that good at 21. Rooney did it, but other than those, in terms of a United, so if we're talking about United players, in my time, I've only ever seen a couple of young kids come in and do that. Rooney was one of them. Cristiano wasn't. He did get better, but Rooney at 18 was unbelievable. Giggs when he came in at 18, even though he wasn't a striker. So asking Rasmus to do that with no help. Now with Rooney and Giggs, they had Cantonars, they had Rudes, they had Roy Keanes, they had Scholes, they had all these players around them. Even though Rooney didn't need that, they still had those players around them, but Rasmus didn't have any of that. So I will still maintain that Rasmus had the raw end of the deal. However, the counter to that is you look at Haaland. I know Haaland came into a City side and was the missing piece, but so many good strikers have gone to good clubs, and have not done it, even though they may have a title winners around them or Champions League winners around them. And Hojlund just isn't it for me. Now, pre-season, I didn't think he was particularly good. I thought he had one or two good games. I do think he had one good game where he scored the header, and he was getting a little bit overhyped for me. I would have liked him to have stayed as a second striker to see what could have happened if you'd have pitted a Hojlund up against a Šeško. But with hindsight, can we let an asset, if he's not going to play and he's a first choice striker, strike while the iron is hot? He's still worth 40 million. So I think you're right. I think we have to absolutely, I agree with you. I think we have to let Rasmus go. We have to let him flourish somewhere else. I do agree with you. I do think that Rasmus may not be the one right now. Will he be the one in the future? I don't know. But I think he needs to go and learn his trade. I don't think he's had that here. He needs that education. Gyökeres, for example, he had to go to Coventry, to Brighton. And it was only really in the last year or two where he's, 26 years old, 25 years old, where he's had to learn his craft. So I hope that happens for him, but I think he needs to go. This experience, as maybe as bad as it has been for him, it will teach him a lot. And I really hope he goes on, and I really hope he becomes one of the best strikers in the world, but he's not going to be here. So I think Napoli, for me, logically, is the place that he's going to go. What's holding this deal up, from the things that I've read and seen, is basically he wants a permanent deal. In terms of he'd be happy to go on loan, but what he wants is an is that obligation to buy. So he doesn't want to have to come back. Imagine if Šeško bangs in 25 goals. He doesn't want to come back to that. He's a striker. His ego can't and shouldn't handle that. So I think when he goes, he wants to go permanently, and I wish him well on that one. I do wish we had more depth, but I wish Rasmus well. Chief, I agree with you, mate. Such a good kid, but if Arsenal fans could applaud Havertz's injury, well, I'll come back to Havertz's injury because that plays into something else that I wanted to say about Inos. So again, that's a really good point. They gave Rasmus too much grace. United always comes with pressure. You sink or you swim, and he drowned. The guy couldn't even control the football, make a 5-yard pass. Exactly, Tulip. You either get it or you don't. And is it Rasmus's fault? No. Does he? He probably needs some education. You some strikers flourish late. I get that, but he's not. And as you say there, is he thinking too much? Is he overthinking this? And when you play for this club, you look at the more established older players that have come to this club, like a Falcao. I know he was injured. He can hack it. You look at a just trying to think of other players. You look at a Kleberson, for example. Kleberson came here and couldn't hack it. He was a World Cup winner at the time, and he can hack it. Sanchez, we swapped him for Arsenal, like £500,000 a week. He couldn't do it either. He couldn't handle the crowd. He couldn't handle what it was. Cavani, I think Cavani was good. He was just injured every other week. I think Cavani was class. Zlatan, I know Cavani is older and Zlatan is older than Hojlund, but you look at Cavani when he was younger. You look at Zlatan when he was younger. You just look at these players and you absolutely know. So I'm still hoping that there's a player in there. And I'm just hoping that when he goes, and I do think it's going to be a loan with option to buy, that Napoli's probably going to be the place. I don't know what's going to happen when Lukaku comes back, but he's probably going to be out probably Christmas. But also what we need to think about as well. So McTominay has obviously gone there as well. So we've obviously got a good connection there. We've given them a Serie A winner in McTominay. So, Hojlund, if he does well as well, we could be a potential feeder club to them. So I think for me, this makes sense. I think Rasmus will go. He doesn't want to go. I don't think he's kicking up his feet, but I do think sort of that's where he wants to go. Rasmus could have been sent up to Scotland on loan at Ahmad or Arteta for some experience. I get that. I don't disagree with you. Zlatan and Larsson could hack it. Exactly, Steve. Steve C, welcome to the chat. They could do. Larsson for me was I loved him. I would have loved Larsson a couple of years earlier. I thought he was an amazing player. Conte will run his. And exactly, Steve. I think you're making some good points. I think this is why Rasmus will do well. He needs to go into that team. As much as United at the last 2 years haven't been great, we've had to move on from him. And I think, Steve, you're right. If he goes into that Conte side, he'll have title winners around him in that side. Conte doesn't take any crap. He will run his arse off. And I think Rasmus is that type. I think he'll be perfect for that side. And I think Italy suits his game as well. So I think you're right. I think Napoli for me is where it makes sense. I think Napoli is the place he should go. But I just think he wants the obligation to buy. So let's see how that one goes. The other thing I wanted to mention is Sancho. So we can talk about Sancho. We can talk about the bomb squad as well. So Sancho, where that's at right now is this is my opinion. Please get your opinions in on Sancho because I think it's really important for us to talk about these types of players. So as I said the other day, where we're at with Sancho is we've got Roma, Besiktas, Juventus. These clubs are all willing to pay us money to take him off our hands. Now, obviously, what we don't want to do is we don't want to pay him off. Now, I think that we would be prepared to pay him the difference between whatever they're offering and whatever the difference is between what he's getting paid now, which could be five to £6 million. Great. But he doesn't just want that. What Sancho wants is he wants another 10 million on top of that. He basically wants us to basically pay him off and some, because he knows if he waits around for a year, he's going to get that money. He may not get 20 million, and he's certainly not going to get paid 300k a week. But what's going to happen with Sancho is that he's going to wait around on his contract. He'll maybe get paid 150 grand a week, like 100k a week, but somebody will give him 15 million to sign on. So why would Sancho, after all the disrespect to the club, disrespect to the fans, even though there's a Besiktas there, there's all sorts of clubs out there willing to give us the money, why is he going to let that happen? It just, over the last couple of days, the last week, has really sunk in with me that I think Sancho's team are playing an absolute blinding game. Whoever his management team is, they're playing this amazing. They're letting it get put out there. The Sancho's willing to go. These clubs are willing to pay Sancho. Sancho's not going to go. I genuinely don't. The only way Sancho goes is on loan. The only way that he goes is basically we get no money for him, and somebody just comes in and maybe we do a 50-50 split on his wages. That saves us some money, and then he goes next season. So I don't see a situation right now where Sancho goes. I don't think we're good enough as a club just yet to be able to sell a player like that. I think he goes on a loan, and then I think he goes on a free next season. So that's where I think we are with Sancho. Chief Herb says Vardy and Defoe is underrated in the Prem. Hojlund ought to learn a thing or two from him. Chief Herb, I think Vardy for me, Jermaine Defoe, again, you've got your Jermaine Defoes, you've got your Darren Bent, you've got those types of strikers who, proper old school strikers, and there's tons of others that we can name, like Kevin Phillips. There's tons of those strikers out there. Proper old fashioned centre forwards. Now I do admit that centre forwards has kind of moved on from back in the day, but players like a Vardy, he worked his way up. I mean, I think for me, Vardy is probably vastly one of the most underrated strikers in the Premier League, and there is this debate that I've seen about Harry Kane and Vardy, who's the better striker, or legacy-wise, who has the best legacy. Now, I think you could argue either way on that one. I think there's no doubt that Kane is a better striker, but the fact that Jamie is in that conversation, I think it speaks very, very highly from where he come with Ebbsfleet. There's a story where he basically, I think he played for like the I can't remember the pub team, but he basically played for like a pub team, and to go from a pub team to like Ebbsfleet to like Leicester City, where he was about to quit, I think is unbelievable. And I think you're right. I think Hojlund would do really well to learn the lessons from those types of players, but sometimes Vardy was clearly a talent. Hojlund is a different sort of striker and a different player to him. So there are lessons to be learned, but sadly, sometimes the overall talent isn't necessarily there. What have we got? King's Latan, exactly. I'm disappointed in Sancho. His ego's got the better of him. I agree with you. I think his ego is out of control. Just think about this. Sancho's best highlights is the amount of money that people have paid for him. He's done nothing in 4 or 5 years. What's he done? He's done absolutely nothing, and he doesn't care. Potentially one of the best midfielders in the last, potentially, by the way, in the last 4 to 5 years, if he'd have had that work ethic, he'd be playing for England. He would be something special. But again, as much as Rasmus is lacking talent but has the drive, Sancho has the talent and lacks the drive. And it just goes to show, sometimes what do you want in life? Do you want somebody with a little bit of talent but massive drive, or do you want somebody who's got so much talent and no drive at all? So you're right. Sancho for me has been an absolute disaster. Probably one of the worst signings I think we've ever made. Probably you could put him up there with some of the worst. And right now, he doesn't go anywhere for me. I think he goes on loan and he'll go on a free next season. If I give my opinion, Sancho, you probably get banned from YouTube. Danny B, legend, my friend. Sancho will be paid 13 million till next year, playing FIFA, going to Drake concerts if he stays. I know it's unbelievable. I don't blame him for the contract, but what I blame him for is the way that he's treated fans, the way that he's treated this club. We've spoken about here many times about what this club means to people. People actually died playing for this club. People actually playing for this club, their lives ended whilst playing matches for this club. And then you got Sancho, who wants to do that to the club. Where's your integrity? Where's your professional pride in all this? I'm not blaming him for the contract. I'm saying that what sort of character are you where you want to almost take out your greed on fan base, take out your greed on this magnificent club, and you think that's perfectly acceptable? That's the question that I'm asking here. It's not, he didn't ask for the contract, but where's your integrity towards yourself? If you can look at yourself in the mirror every morning, fine. But where's your pride? To play for your country, to play for the fans, for the screaming kids and adults who pay their money to put your name on the back of the shirt, who put you where you are, and to do that to us fans, I think it's beyond reproach. I think it's one of the most disgusting things that you could do. You may have a different opinion to that, and that's fine. But that's where I'm at on that one. Danny B, Sancho's the worst signing. At least we got our money back for the Maria, which is true. Sancho wanted to run his contract in order to return to Dortmund. I think if I was Dortmund, I wouldn't have him back. Martin Faye, Vardy's going to Celtic. Martin, I think that'd be do you know what? For Vardy, I think that would be absolutely brilliant. I think that would be for him. I think it would be a great move. You if you go to Ibrox, no, it's not. Sorry, Celtic Park. I don't want to be lynched up by the Rangers fans. If you go to Celtic Park, massive fan base. You'll be loved and adored up there. I know it's the Scottish Premier League, and I don't want to disrespect any league at all. But if you go up there, you'll be adored by fans. They're a massive club. Leicester, by comparison, are not even, the same club. To go there, you'll be adored. So I think for him, I think it's a fantastic move. For him. Yeah. As Danny B says, get into the chat, give us a like, favourite and subscribe. It does help us out. This is one of the best chats on this platform, hands down. Get into this chat. You will soon see the players that we mention and the chats that we have on here are absolute first class with a bunch of legends. Steve says not many strikers out there. Yeah, Hojlund has got potential. And he's got age on his side. So imagine if you're a Napoli or you're an Italian league club, right? Hojlund was playing well before he left. Now he has Premier League experience, 2 years of Premier League experience. Okay, it hasn't gone amazingly well. His numbers are not. I was going to say they're not horrific. They're not brilliant, but he's still got double figures, I think, in both of the seasons. So if you're an Italian club, 2 years Premier League experience, and you look at the players that have come from the Premier League into the Italian League, then, actually, I think he's worth a punt. The age, the wage, I think he's made for that league. I think anyone would be silly not to take a punt at him for 40 million. His age, still his potential is 21 or 22 years old. For me, I think absolutely. Yeah, Dong Fang Zhu. Yeah, he was awful. What about Sancho? Oh, we're signing never. I think Sancho has a gambling problem. Do you know what? Nothing would surprise me with that lad. Sancho is as useful as a butterfly passing in the. I agree with you on that one. Celtic has a cult following, amazing team. Exactly. If you go up there and you just play for the fans, Champions League every 2-3 years, they will adore you up there, mate. Absolutely adore you, and they've had some amazing players there as well. I think for me, I think they're a really, they're an old school respected team. They're just a fantastic club. Celtic has a cult following. Martin Fay, yes. The Brendan Rodgers connection, I think Vardy could be. Yeah. Hojlund stock in Italy is very high. Exactly, Steve. As a Celtic fan, I welcome Vardy as he would make a difference regardless of his age. Nice for Celtic fans to be on here as well. Welcome, my friend. What if Spurs fight Chelsea for Garnacho? Wouldn't that be a great idea? Good segue, Chief. Chief, it's like you read my mind at times. It's almost like you read this camera. It's almost like you read my mind at times. So we can go into the latest on the Sancho thing. And again, you can let me know in the chat what you think about the Garnacho thing. So Garnacho, for me, if you think Sancho is bad, I think he's worse. So Chelsea apparently value Garnacho at 25 million. Takeover closes Sing in Qatar. We'll come over that as well, my friend. We can talk about the Qatar sell as well, because that is obviously on the thumbnail, and that's not clickbait, and that's out there. You may have seen it already today, and we can go over that one as well. So if we're talking about Spurs, so Eze obviously was going to go to Spurs, and then Arsenal, like a big club, come in and basically snatch him from Spurs, which obviously helps us out, but also goes to highlight what big clubs do, right? Eze was going to go to Spurs, he was on his way, and then basically Arsenal said, nah, we're going to take you, and that is what they did. So in terms of that, Garnacho, he wants to go to Chelsea, but Chelsea value him at £25 million. I just want to let that sink in for a second. If you've not heard that today, I think that's a Jacobs again. I think that's a Ben thing again. I think maybe that's a Fabrizio thing as well. That's come out that Chelsea value Garnacho, and just let it sink in. Chelsea value Garnacho at £25 million. It's, in my opinion, that is unbelievable. I would rather, and as I've said before, I don't like to say this about academy grads who come through this club. I don't wish ill on any player. When I say that, I don't know these kids. I'm sure he's a lovely person, but when you show such disrespect to, again, the fan base, imagine you're contracted to this club, or imagine you're contracted to a job, and then what you then do is you then basically go and wear to work. You go and basically then wear the kind of outfit, or you wear the branding of a rival company to your job, and you then you start flaunting with this job as you work in your same job. I mean, you're not going to keep your job, are you, really? And again, just let this sink in, right? You've got a young player who's been given a chance at this club, and yeah, I get the final wasn't great. He did play up until that final, and if you'd have asked me after the final, I would have been on the side of his. I would have said Amarin for me is a red flag there. Why has he devalued a youth player who potentially at one point was worth 60 to 70 million pounds? Number one, Amarin's been proven right on this one. He's been proven right on these players. So I have to give him credit for that first and foremost. And then you've got a player who has conspired with the likes of Chelsea. So what they've done together is that they've conspired, and I truly believe this, is that Chelsea have conspired and they've concocted a plan together and said, look, if you devalue yourself to a degree whereby we can go and buy you for £25 million, then you can come to the club. I just find it absolutely bizarre. We cannot sell Garnacho for £25 million for a number of reasons. Number one, I think the most important thing is that he's worth 50 in a market where Langa's went for 55 million, where Madueke's gone for 50 odd million. Garnacho is younger, more experienced. He's a fantastic player. How can he be worth £25 million? It is a ludicrous deal. And second of all, if we let him go for that amount of money, our credibility in the transfer market, where our credibility is low anyway, you've got to look at your brand and you have to look at your status of a club. The kid has got a contract, I think, for the next, is it 2 to 3 years? So as a contract is nothing that he can do. The value is there in the contract. And I think if the only value that we can get is £25 million out of him, I think we'd let him rot. In life, when you have everything has a value, right? So your house, your car, right? And sometimes you do need to sell things, and you got to sell your house and you sell your car, and you got to take a cut price, for example, because you just need to sell it quick, right? But there even comes a time whereby the value offered is so low that you're forced into keeping that thing because you literally cannot take it because the value is so low. And there's so many negative factors to this right now that he's actually going to negatively impact his career, because he's not going to go to a World Cup. There is no, in his mind, I truly believe that he thinks that we're going to panic and we're going to sell him for 25 mil because we desperately need the money so much. And you could argue, and I would argue that possibly you could say that maybe we do, but I don't think he's playing this right. I think he's not going to go to a World Cup. I think that I would leave him on a bench for a year, let him rot, and sell him for that value next year, because he's going to be worth that next year. In fact, I'd argue, even if he didn't play a minute, he's going to be worth that next season. So I would just let him rot. I would impact his career like he's impacted this club. The way that he's treated this fan base, the disrespect he's shown to this club, I would make an example out of him. And whether or not that is the right thing, maybe that is petty. This is how much I feel about this. I am not a type of person who's petty. I'm a very logical, I think things out before I say them most of the time. But the disrespect that he's shown this club, I can't think of another player that has disrespected this fan base, disrespected this club to a degree whereby I want to, I'd want to impact his career. That you can't do this to a club of this size, and we cannot let him. So I'd teach him a lesson. And it also shows and teaches the rest of this squad, if you do that, then this is then what happens. You could argue with Isaac, for example. That's slightly different because the money involved in that, we're talking 120 to 30 million that somebody wants to pay. But if, for example, somebody wanted to give him 55 million for that player, then again, you wouldn't let him go. But as a club, there's too many negative points on this one, and we'd be crucified. We'd be crucified in the media. We'd be a laughing stock. So we can't let him go for that price. So Garnacho really needs to think about this. And if anybody knows him, I would just say I would advise him, look, you need to stop this, because the only person that you're going to hurt at the end of the day is you. You're going to miss a lot of football, and you're going to negatively impact your career. So that's where we are on Garnacho. Let's have a look. Garnacho could have had it all, but his antics and actions overshadowed his talent. Once it is all his own way, too quick and no patience. Exactly. His idols are Cristiano and Messi, and even Cristiano at his second phase here. As much as he didn't want to be here, and I didn't agree with the interview that he did, he still did it in a way that wasn't disrespectful to the club. So, even his idols would never behave in that way. So I just don't know what he's doing. I have no idea. Pep to Arteta, get Eze so we can sell Savinho to Spurs and get Rodrigo. Rodrigo, I think, is going to Man City, mate. I really do. I think Rodrigo is going to go to Man City, isn't he? I mean, that is ridiculous. I mean, they're going to go and get him. I think it's Havertz, say less, boss. His price depreciates. Yeah, 100% let him rot. I agree, let him rot. Mark Harris, legend of the chat. Welcome back, my friend. Kobe Mainoo, frozen out. Mason Mount, false 9. Amarin, 25% success rate in EPL is coming. And I think we have to acknowledge Amarin's win rate at the moment is 7 wins out of 28. And this is why I love you guys in the chat. Mark Harris comes in, with a very well-observed point, and I think that you can't argue with facts, and for all the pluses right now, I think that's a very, very good point to make. 8 wins out of 20, 7 wins out of 28. So this is why this is why we need signings. This is why we need the likes of a Hojlund to go, even though he's not a troublemaker. We still need him to go. We need a Garnacho to go. We need these resolved. We need these out of the door, and we need players in. So this is why, because of Amarin's win rate, that's a very, very good point. 7 out of 28. He's going to be crucified. If he doesn't win the next 2 games, he's in trouble. I don't think he should be. But if he doesn't win the next 2 games, he's then talking 9 wins out of. He's talking 7 wins out of 30. And it is. Mark's right. And this is why this is why selling a Garnacho is so key. We need these players gone. We need the wages back in so we can go and sign these players. Now that's a good segue, and I'll come back and forth. Is Anthony? So Anthony's now doing the same, and this is why I will give Amarin credit for this, and I'll give INEOS football side credit for this. Is they've been right on these players. So Anthony, right? I gave him credit because, and there's videos at the very, very start of this where you'll see me giving him credit. I've said in the past that he found himself alone. He wanted to play his World Cup year, and I think he did an amazing thing. But now, because he can't get his own way and go back to a club that he loved because they can't afford him, he's kicking and screaming. He's kicking and screaming, and he's going to wait until the end of the window, and he's gonna, he wants to force a move. And again, Amarin was right, wasn't he? Again, I hate being, sometimes it's good to be right. It's good to be wrong. But in this circumstance, again, all right, come on. Honestly, this does me every time. Right, I should be back. Okay, here we go. Let's get back to this. Honestly, this Wi-Fi. So, Anthony. So the last really thing to say on these players, really, on this bomb squad, and this is where we've spoken about this, and when we were talking about where we are in the window. So we've got 10 days left. Things can still happen in this window back. So when we're talking about this window, and we were all, when we were talking about a Belieber deal and a Goalkeeper deal, and then we did the Shesko deal, and we were all buoyed by these deals, and I think they're fantastic deals. But unless we get these players out, I don't think we're going to sell a single player, and I think that's an absolute travesty. I think that's an absolute blemish on this club. Rashford has gone out on loan and not really tearing up trees. Hojlund will probably go on loan. Sancho won't go, and we won't get any money for him, so that's on a loan. Anthony will go on loan. Malacia may be the one that gets sold. So this is why, as a club, we are still struggling. Now, I'm going to slightly pivot for a second, because this sort of fits into kind of what I wanted to talk about as well. So this sort of fits in and feeds into maybe this next bit. So a couple of months, 18 months ago, obviously, or was it 2 years this year, where, in my opinion, we lost. The club was put up for sale, and it was obviously Sheikh Jazim and INEOS. Basically, there were a load of other capital companies who wanted to come in and prop up the Glazers. So, there were lots of... I genuinely thought Qatar were going to buy the club. And yes, I'm not saying that they would have done a better job. But what they would have done, the two things they would have done that I wanted them to do, was clear the debt, and which is not our debt. So they would have cleared the Glazers' debt and got rid of the Glazers. Whatever happened after that, that's fine. Even if Sir Jim had have come in and cleared the debt and bought the club out, I would have supported him the whole way through. Now, what has transpired in the last couple of days? Now, I did see this about 2 weeks ago. Now, I never mentioned it because I just thought a load of nonsense. So I didn't really pay too much attention about it until today it's kind of come out. So Mike Keegan in the Daily Mail, so he's kind of led with this INEOS Glazer sell thing. So basically, something called a drag along sell right clause, which is basically means, so what it can mean, that is kicked in after 18 months, whereby if the Glazers wanted to sell the club, they can sell the club and there's nothing that Sir Jim can do. So I think there's a guaranteed sell in terms of the dollar price. I think they can sell the club for something like $30 a share. So that is what they can do. So there's this clause that they've put into the contract that they can sell to whoever they like after 18 months. Is nothing that Sir Jim can do about it. Now, obviously, we know Sir Jim has increased his stake to 28.3% and paid another 80 million into the club. So, fine. Now, I've seen a lot of stuff again about questions about, Qatar. Is there a possibility that Qatar could come back in now? So effectively, what could happen is that Qatar could come back in to this club and offer money. Now, I think it would take a massive offer for them to do that, or anyone else could do that. So, potentially, and this is more of a debating point for us to talk about, and I wanted to put it on the thumbnail because I think I wanted to come on and sort of clear some stuff up as to where I think we're logically at and where I think that we're going to go with this one. So I think the timing of this is an interesting timing point. So whereby we are getting pressure. So the club is getting pressured, and this has happened before, by the way. The club is getting pressurised on players' sales. They're getting hammered. Get absolutely hammered now, the fact that they can't sell players, they can't loan players out, so they're getting hammered. There's loads of stories about midfielders, Agume, Stiller coming out now as well about, they're clearly being pushed, and they know that we need to buy players, and they know we need to sell players. So what is it? So what is it that they can do that a fan base will like? The Qatar bid again. So there's no coincidence that during this period of the next 10 days, when things are happening and if things don't happen, and I need to remind you as well, because people have missed this and they keep missing this. About 3 weeks ago, David Ornstein, if you clearly know who he is, he's an he does what he does, and the club give him stuff, right? But have no doubts on this one. He is a mouthpiece for this club. He gets to go to the club, he gets to stand there, and he gets to do his bits and pieces. Now, about 3 weeks ago, Ornstein in a podcast basically come out and said that United feel that they may not do all of their business this season and may wait till the next window, and they've already felt like they've done some really good business. Now, I've also read today along a good couple of sources out there that there is an option here, right, whereby United may actually not dip into the market again this season. And what they might do is they might transfer the money that they're going to spend this season for a CM and actually put it onto next year's spend. So there's a real possibility right now that United may not do any business. So Onana hasn't been told he is for sale. They've been putting it out there that Onana is still the number one keeper, and they're not going to sell him this year. They've not told him that he's been sold yet. There's also a story about how we were very close for Martinez, like very, very, very close. Amorim wanted him. He agreed to come to the club, but the board felt that he was too old, too expensive. It didn't want to do that deal. So we were very, very close on that. I think that is really that's been established. Is that we were very, very, very close on him, but we didn't want to do that deal. But there is talk as well that now we may not even go in for a CM this season, and actually what we might do is you might transfer the budget to next season, and we may just let Amorim have whatever he's got this season to crack on with. I genuinely hope that isn't true, and this is the point here, is that we had an opportunity to get Qatar. Qatar would have, whether we liked it or not, they couldn't have done what City did and ploughed a load of money in. But I'm convinced that under Qatar, even Sir Jim, if he owned it and got rid of the debt, the amount of money that we make commercially, we wouldn't be scratching around, and we wouldn't be trying to put in a budget for next year, and we would just go out and we would go and do these deals, and we wouldn't even think twice about these deals. Now, where am I at with this sell clause? I just think this has come out basically as there's no coincidence with this club. These things don't come out and leak without there being an agenda with this club. So I think they've dangled the carrot again, and they've just let it come out there that there is this clause out there that now the Glazers can sell. Do I think the Glazers will sell? 100% no. I think Ratcliffe and the Glazers, apparently he really likes them. He thinks they're good people, as he said many times. They get on extremely, extremely well. I think he likes them. They like him. Now, he is the perfect shield. What he's done for them is not only has he given them the ability to hide, he is that shield. So when things go right, INEOS look good. But when things go bad, it's on INEOS as well. So he's given them that shield now. So he's in charge of the sporting bit, when we all know that the Glazers are still there or thereabouts and still are heavily involved in their everyday. But he's also there for basically the project for the stadium. Says Onana really needs to go. He frustrates me so much. He's He's so good. Eric Ten Hag didn't even bring him with him to Leverkusen. Agreed with you so much. So we can come on to that as well, my friend. So that is where we're at. Have no illusion here. Have no illusion. And yet Sir Jim has invested, I think, £250 million of his own pocket into the club. I get that. But in my opinion, there's a reason for that. He's also obviously invested, INEOS has invested into the Carrington training ground. I get that as well. And you know, you can have your opinions on that. But you got to look at this from a financial perspective. And this is just my opinion as a finance person, as an accountant, is that when you're looking to buy a business and you know potentially in 7 to 8 years' time, you're going to make 10 times the amount of money that you've invested, but your asset needs, you know, to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, when your asset needs to be basically fixed, right? But you know, in the future, it's going to be worth billions and billions of pounds. So let's just say, you know, he's given them, say he's invested £1.5 billion in this club. In potentially 7 years' time, that 1.5 billion is going to probably worth about eight. And even at that point, he's not going to take that out. That then asset is probably then going to make him 200 to 300 million pounds a year. So he's going to make money out of this. So don't be, in my humble opinion, don't be fooled here that Sir Jim has to invest in this squad, because he needs this squad to basically do well. He can't have his asset do badly, because then they're not going to have the funding. You know, they've just done a deal with Coca-Cola. You know, for them to be getting these brand deals, they still need to be in the Premier League, and they still need to be finishing in that top 6 teams. So he needs to invest in that team, and it's an investment. It's not a labour of love. It's not going to clear the debt and come into this club, and because he's passionate about this club. In my opinion, and this is just my opinion on this, he is basically making sure his asset works, making sure that the asset has future. So then when they build the stadium, that investment is then going to be worth 2 to 3 times the value of that. And if Sir Jim wants to prove me wrong and say, you know, and buy more of the club, you know, buy 5% more, buy 50% more, I'm happy to hold up my hands and say, look, I was wrong on this. I misjudged him on this. But all I'm seeing right now, even with the signings that we've made, we've had to have made these signings. We had no choice to make these signings. But we're still not fully backing the manager. He needs a CM. You know, we've still got the same team pretty much that finished 15th last season. And I'll keep on saying it. We've still got the same team that finished 15th last season. So there is investment, but it's investment on an asset to a point whereby this is not about winning the league. This is not about being the best of the best. This is about surviving until the stadium is built, and then they cash out, then they do whatever else. But it is up until that point, that is what we're doing. We are just they're just maintaining their asset until they can make a bunch more money. And that is where I'm at on it. You may disagree with that, but that's proof on the pitch. It's proof of the stadium. That's proof of what it is the Glazers are trying to do. Chief, any updates on Isak, JB? Right now, let's have a little look. Giles says, if the Glazers are selling more shares, it will be Jim who buys the shares. Jim wants 51% as fast as possible. Giles, I disagree, but I hope you're right. So I completely disagree with that. I don't think Sir Jim has any inclination to own this club whatsoever. If I'm wrong on that, hands up. But I can only say what I see. And from what I see, why would the Glazers give up power? And I get 51%, but then why would Sir Jim want to take on that debt? Looking at it from that perspective, if he's owning 51% of the club, then he owns 51% of the debt. And also, so INEOS are not doing that well. He's lost a couple of billion as well. So he's not an endless pot of money. Until I prove wrong, Joel, and I really, mate, I hope you're right. I hope Sir Jim is a fan and he's got a long-term plan. But business long-term plans don't work in football. You can't. Football is one of the only businesses in the world where you can't future plan. It doesn't work. It's all about tomorrow. It's all about the result tomorrow. You can future plan. So let's just say his future plan is for 5 years' time, and we lose every single game this season, then it all goes out the window because we've gone down to we've basically gone down a league. You can't plan football. I get you can plan to some degree, but you've got to be the here and now. So I'm willing to be wrong on this one, but I think that's Sir Jim's long-term plan isn't to buy the club. It's basically to stay here, invest in it, and then make a bunch of money once the stadium's built. But I'm more than happy to be proved wrong on that one. When I'm back. Cool. When I'm back. Cool. So, United CYP. Let me get onto your chat first. So, sorry guys, but if you guys want anything but a full sell, then you really are United fans. Now, again, what I'll say to you, United CYP, is I'm not going to call you out on your comment, right? Because everybody has their comment, right? Or has their opinion on this one, right? But I am full sell. This is where I'm at. I want the Glazers gone by any means. I want them gone. What they've done to this club is horrific. They've let our home be destroyed. The match-going fans, right, have had to put up with watching our home get destroyed over the last 20 years. Okay, I think it's appalling. I think they should have been removed. They're not fit owners, and I want them gone. Right now, for me, Sir Jim is helping them. Right now, for me, Sir Jim is the enemy of this club. And what I mean by that is when you are propping up people who are so despicable of what they've done to this club and you've facilitated them to still be here and hang on, I've got an issue with that, right? However, I appreciate people and that's my opinion. I'm never going to force that opinion. I'm never going to say that you're not a real fan because you disagree with me or you agree with me. I think there are a couple of ends to this scale that I don't agree with. So I don't agree with fans who say like Sir Jim is the best thing and he's got like this like really long-term plan. And if you don't agree with that, then you're not a fan. Then you've got comments like yours, and I'm not calling you out on it. Just saying that, if you've got United fans and you don't agree that there's a full sell, so you're not a fan. Everybody, whether we like it or not, has a view on this, right? So if you're saying that if you don't accept a full sell, and I'm with you on this one, I agree with you, but what I don't agree with is saying that whatever end of the scale you're at, saying that you're not a real fan because you don't agree with that opinion, it's not as clear. It can't be as clear as that. Yes, I think we should have a full sale, but what happens if I'm wrong? What happens if I'm calling Sir Jim an enemy of this club, but actually in 2 years' time he is going to buy the club? I don't think he is, but I could be wrong on that. So I can't say, like, as a fan base, this is what they've done to us all. They have divided us. So it comes to a point whereby we can have a difference in our opinions, and I think that's the correct thing to do. But I'm never going to call somebody who loves Sir Jim not a fan because they don't agree with me. We can agree to disagree on this, but I think what we all have to do together is agree on one thing, is that we are all fans because we're in this together. Now, this is why we're here. This is why we're passionate about this club. So what I think it is more, I think it's frustration, and I think sometimes we take our frustrations out on each other. Actually, we should be aiming it at the right people, and it's not us. But you know, I get it. I do. I get the opinion. I just don't agree with the fan bit. Is that so? You can hear me now. If you know how Jim works, when he takes over a business, he buys a small stake, and as time goes on until he owns it. I see this happening. And again, Joel, mate, I really hope you're right on this one, but it's not a business. Like, we are a business, but we're not a business. I do hope you're right on this one, and I can see the merit in it. I can see the merit of what he's trying to do. But you can't compete. You can't do what you do in business as in football. It's a completely different business. So, for example, Liverpool, City, they're going to buy this league. You know, we're going to come to a point where Sir Jim's strategy could be to buy this club. But it might be too late. It might be too slow. Liverpool and City could be that far ahead in 5 to 6 years' time. Let's just say that he does own this club. He's going to have to spend billions to get the squad up to scratch, but he's not going to be able to spend the billions because of FFP and PSR. So this is why he needs to do it now. So I completely get the point. I completely do. You know, Sir Jim needs to be respected for the businessman that he is. You know, you don't do what he's done in life without being clever and astute, but he's picked the wrong business and the wrong model for the Premier League, because in no scenario that I've ever seen is that prudence and business, proper business, works in football. It just simply doesn't. We could be proved wrong, but right now I just can't see it, my friend. Qatar Jazim is not coming back. They yeah, Joe, and that was going to be my next statement here. Is that Qatar are not coming back. They're not coming back in. You know, they've been embarrassed. They have. I think the Olympics are going to go there as well. So I think that Qatar have been embarrassed to the point where they're just not going to come back in. I'd love them to come back in. Maybe they will in the future, but I think right now, Joel, I think you're 100% correct. The PSG, you know, they're doing fine as well. So I think Qatar, I think that ship has sailed, and we're stuck with this regime for the second. United CYP says, how can anyone be a real fan of the club if you support the person who's enabled the Glazers to stay? Sir Jim says he's a fan of United. Please tell me why he wanted to buy Chelsea first. Please, we can't be this deluded, guys. Sir Jim is not the guy. He ain't no fan. He just sees us as a money-grabbing opportunity. United CYP, if you've heard me there, you know, I am in your camp. Okay, I agree with you in terms of the only part of it that I don't agree with. And I agree with what it is. I agree with exactly what you're saying. I feel the same way as you. But it's not as simple as that. I think in life, we all view things in different ways. We all view football in different ways. We all watch people in different ways, and the problem is the optics of this as well, right? So people don't watch football in the same way. People don't analyze. So, for example, you know what's going on within this club. There are lots of millions and millions of fans who don't watch this club to the level that some of us do, or are not aware. All they see are the signings, all they see are the Carrington stuff. They maybe they just don't have an interest in that side. But if you buy a shirt, if you watch a game, if you read about it, just because you don't necessarily understand the business side or what's going to happen, it doesn't make you any less of a fan. That is my only opinion on it. You've got your opinion on that, my friend. I agree with the core of your opinion, but I just don't agree with the fan bit. And I respect that opinion as well, but I just can't agree that just because you don't want the same thing as somebody else, well, that makes you any less of a fan. I just don't think it does. For example, my youngest my middle child is 10, and there's so many kids out there, teenagers as well, young people, who don't really understand this side of it. And she loves the club. She wants football kits. She absolutely adores the club. I'm going to take her at some point. And you've got young kids and teenagers as well that all they care about maybe is like the player FC, but they still adore this club. So are they not fans because they don't understand that? So I just think we really need to be careful. We need to be educated, and I think you're right on the Glazers. I think you need to be. I think you're 100% right that this fan base needs to be aware of the facts of the Glazers, what they've done to this club, what they've done to our home. Our home is to a point now whereby it's so badly run, we need to move because it's going to take so long to fix it, to understand what they've done, how badly they spent the money. But then you need to let people make that decision for themselves. And I'm not here to dictate my view on how you should be. I'll give you my opinion. But for me, a fan is what a fan is. As long as you support this club, in my opinion, you're a fan. But we've all got our opinions on that, right? The reason Sir Jim didn't come in for Chelsea came after the deadline. He showed he wanted to buy a club. He did enable the Glazers to try and sell the club, and Jim had shown he was interested. I've got to give Sir Jim some credit for showing up in public while the dirty geezers hid. PR move, but I can see the changes that were minor hiccups here and there, but we move anyways. That is what I read long time ago. The Carrington upgrade has been something that we needed, but you've got to stop 400 tea ladies. Anyway, United have done some very good business today. We've got a new head of academy, one of the best signing from Brentford. We also poached the head of medical science from Crystal Palace. And Joe, and these are the things as well. As much as we need to educate the fan base on the negative sides, we also, as you've said there, we also need to be fair and balanced and say, look, this is what INEOS have done. And maybe it's going to take a couple of years for us to see the fruition of what it is that they're trying to do. But my ultimate comeback on this right now, and I in the future, if we're still here in the future, the couple of points are the debt is still here. And I know that's not Sir Jim's responsibility, but the debt is still here. Now, he gave the Glazers £1.2 billion. They should have used that to clear the debt. And I'm not saying that that's his fault. But when you enable people who bought this club on debt, take money out of the club to put in their own pocket, have never put a penny of their own money into this club, wasted billions and billions of pounds, left our home in such a state that we can't fix it, or it's going to cost billions and billions of pounds. I can't get past that right this second, and they can do these upgrades to to the playing staff. They can upgrade to the training facilities, which I think is needed, and I don't disagree with that one. But ultimately, these are really small things, and I get it. These little tiny changes that needed to be made, but when the big things are so big, right now I can't get past that. And when you've got Sir Jim, who has enabled these blood-sucking scumbags to stay, and the debt is still here. Let's not forget that the debt grows every year. The dividends, they're not being paid right now, but they will be getting paid out at some point. Debt interest, 50-60 million pounds a year. I can't get past that right now. It's just when you get somebody that enables it, just because they invest a little bit of their own cash, basically to keep the club afloat. That's where I'm at on that. But again, if these changes that they make have a positive impact on the field, and then that enables us to ultimately what we should care about is the survival of this club and the playing staff of this club. Really, we shouldn't really care about what goes on with Sir Jim. As long as this club is where it's supposed to be, we're in no danger of being in debt, and we're winning things on the pitch. That is ultimately where this fan base and where we should be as a club. Where are we? I'm not pro INEOS, but I'm also not chasing them with a pitchfork. I get that as well. I gave them 3 years. There are bad things, there are also some very good things. I give them a fair shake. And Joel, mate, that's a very, as I say, I'm very logical and balanced and fair. Maybe on this one, I'm a bit unfair. Potentially, I think I'm biased, leaning towards how I feel about the Glazers. But I think your view there, it's a very intelligent and very balanced view, and I hope that I can get there. So I think your view on that for me is probably one of the most balanced that I've seen, and is a viewpoint that I'd love to get to. So I'm striving to get to where you are, and I think that's a very intelligent and a very valid point. I'm trying to get there. I'm trying to be balanced as I can, but I think right now, and I'll be open about this, I don't hide anything. Maybe I'm very biased right now because of my feelings towards the Glazers, and maybe that does glaze over my opinion. I'm not pushing it onto anybody else, and I will promote opinions, Joel, like yours, I think are really, really balanced. And again, I think it's a really intelligent and really valid point to say. Joe, again, with the takeover, Qatar was done with trying to get the club 6 months before Jim was about to leave the table. The Glazers panicked, and it was... I think for me, it wasn't necessarily Qatar. I think it was, for me, it was any opportunity for somebody to come in and buy it. I think if it could have been anybody, and who's to say that Qatar would have been the best owners? It just, for me, it was probably blinded as well by removal of the Glazers. That for me was probably the biggest thing, was removing of the Glazers and removing of the debt. And that was the thing. So it could have been Sir Jim, it could have been somebody else, but I think for me, the kind of overarching thing for me is that basically the debt is still here. The debt for me, holds us back so much, and along with the people that brought the debt as well. So I think you're right. I think we've got no choice on this one. At the end of the day, we don't have a choice on this one. I think that I need to be realistic and get on board with it as much as I possibly can. And I really, do not get me wrong, I really hope that the INEOS Football Inside in the next 2 weeks can pull off some stuff, because they have done three good deals right now, but they need to do so much more on those deals right now. Let's have a little look. See what else we've got. We've spoken about that. Martinez was close. So in other news, actually, another thing I wanted to mention as well. Qatar was most definitely not out of the race. This was completely false. The Glazers were desperate to sell when Qatar was favourites. Sir Jim came along and gave the Glazers a better option. United CYP, as we've established, right, I feel the same way about you as this club, right? So I feel the exact same way as you, but I definitely need to get over that a bit, right? But where I disagree slightly on that opinion is Glazers never wanted to sell. The Glazers may have needed to sell because they were out of money, and I believe that the Glazers were out of money, but they didn't want to sell. They did not. What people have to realise about the Glazers, Sir Jim, again, facts. He did. There is no question here that Sir Jim allowed them to stay with that as well. But what we've got to understand is you've got to understand the enemy that you are dealing with here, right? You've got to go all the way back, and I've said this now a few times. You look at the Glazers and what they've always done, right? They bought the Buccaneers from Tampa, right? Many years ago. And they bought that with leveraged debt. So they bought it exactly the same way that they basically bought us on. They basically used assets to buy an asset, right? So they bought the Buccaneers, and then the stadium needed to be rebuilt and they needed to do some stuff. But they didn't want to spend out of their own pocket. So what they then did, they basically threatened Tampa, Florida, I think it is. They were going to move the stadium and the team to another state. So basically the state and the taxpayer was basically forced into building a stadium. So they were forced into building the stadium. I don't think they even repaid it back. But basically the taxpayer paid for the stadium. Now, what does that sound like to you? So fast forward, they bought the club on leveraged debt. Now there's a plan from 2017, 2018, whereby they know that they've got land, and their basically plan the whole way through this is to basically do what they're doing now, is to regenerate the area, build a new stadium, and like they did with Tampa Bay, is basically get the government to pay for it. That's been their plan, and it's there. It's been there for a very, very long time. That was their plan. Now, to come back to your point, to say that they were out of money, they didn't want to sell. I disagree with you, completely disagree with you on that one. They were out of money, but they did not want to sell. They know what they've got. They've got land that is worth billions of pounds. You go back to their plan in 2017. You look at before that what they did in the 2000s with Tampa Bay to get the government to build them a stadium. And this is what they're trying to do now. They're trying to get the taxpayer to fund the stadium, to build the stadium, because without that backing, they can't build the stadium, and they will go. But what they've done is they've got Sir Jim in as the front man for this. And Sir Jim doesn't mind investing £1 billion or two, because what that means is not only will he get that back when the stadium is built and like the land is built. The valuation of this club was about 4 billion. When this happens, when the stadium is built and everything is built, this club's going to be worth 12 billion, not just because of of on the pitch, but basically because of the land around it, the money that will be involved, the stadium. And that is why Sir Jim is here. That is why the Glazers are here. But I completely agree with you. They had no money. They might have had to sell, but they didn't want to sell. And this is where I agree with you completely, is that Sir Jim is here as a front man for the Glazers to do their stuff. So this is why when we're talking about this clause, and ultimately what I've just said here is the reason why, even though there's a clause out there, and you're going to see loads of accounts and loads of people out there talking about this, saying that Qatar will come back in and they're going to sell. They're not going to, for the reasons discussed. It's not going to happen, and I think it's really important for us to talk about this, to put this to bed, this clause to bed, before this club tries to spin it again. Qatar are not going to be back. The Sheikh is not going to be back. There's a clause there that they could sell this club. It's just not going to happen. So I think it's really important for us to talk about this now. Sadly, it's not going to happen. I just think that in the next 2 weeks, we're going to get spun a load of stuff like this. And we just need to be really mindful about what people take in and what it is designed to do, and it's designed to spin us around again. I agree with you. I don't want to sell, but they were desperate, so they wanted to sell Qatar. They offered him. I don't. Yeah, he did. I can't disagree with you. I can't. Joe said, the last I heard, they might have already got a few sponsors to fund the stadium. I'm waiting for the news to be released when he went on tour, Jim and Brady. Yeah, exactly, Joe. I heard that completely. That's exactly what was going on. So when they were out there, one of the things that I heard, so Seb Co was out there too, and that's what they had a consortium out there effectively, and they were going to American businesses, to investors, and this is what they were trying to do, was they're basically just trying to sell the project to get back in so they can build a stadium. You know, they're promising naming rights to the stadium, you know, all the bits and bobs around it. So in my opinion, it's going to happen. I can't see how it doesn't happen. I think we've got the Glazers here for many, many years, and that is where we are with it. So I think people like me and CYP, I think we're just going to sort of we're going to have to get on with it. We may not like it. I'll continue to bang that drum, but we are where we are. In other positive news, I want to kind of do some positive news in this one. So there's a young man called JJ Gabriel. So he's 14 years old, I believe he is now, and he's been told, and he's been called up to the first team. So if you know anything about this kid, he's like this wonder kid, and you know he is like the next big thing. And there's a game, a famous game out there where I think we won like 12-0, and he scored like goals in that game, and he's 14 years old. I think it was an under 18s game, or you know. And apparently there's been pictures out there today, and he's been told he's going to be training with the first team. Amarin has already picked him out. He's 14 years old. I think he's 14, 15 years old. I can't remember what I've put down. I think he's 14 years old. Now, this has come from the BBC. This is from Simon Stone, and there's pictures there. So I just, you know, I think for every negative thing, so, you know, we've got to talk about the sell clause, and we've got to talk about, you know, we've got to talk about the likes of a Sancho, you know, and we've got to talk about the fact that Hojlund will be on loan and we can't sell players and whatever else. But these are the things that we've got to celebrate as well. So I think, as you know, at CYP, agree with you, mate. Everyone did fall for the bait, and the protest got cancelled. Agree 100% on you on that one, 100%. So back to the positive. We'll have to be positive on this one as well. So Gabriel, he's 14 years old. He does look a talent. The fact that Amarin has already seen something in him, going to be training with the first team. Again, for every Glazer thing that we talk about, for every Sancho we talk about, for every potential signing, the one thing at this club we've always done right, and I want to continue to do so, is promote the youth. Maybe in the last couple of years, maybe we haven't done so well on that, but people like Rooney as well. Is it Kai Rooney? I think it's Kai Rooney getting called up to the first team. Imagine, these young kids, 14 years old. I think Kai Rooney is 15, 16 years old. These are the things as well that we should be celebrating. These are the little things that we should be talking about now. So when we talk about them now, and then maybe in 5 years' time, if I'm still here, we can look back on this and go, we spoke about these young players, and you look at them, they've come through 15 years old. Imagine if I'm still here in 5 years' time, and Rooney is playing. Imagine having another Rooney in our team at 20 years old who's just as good as his dad. Or we've got a kid of 14 years old who potentially in 2-3 years time could be the next star. And these are the things I think it's really easy for me at times to kind of be to exaggerate stuff, right? There are really important things in this club that we need to I think you're right, Joel. I think you're right, my friend. Let's hope that you're still here in 5 years' time. You can't compete. Welcome, my friend. So these are the wins that we need to talk about. These young players, and I would give INEOS football side on this, and I think we were doing this well anyway. These young kids who we're trying to bring in now to this club, who want to come here. The Carrington, the new, what we've done there, I think can only help this fan base. Hi JB, hit the like button for you guys for Glazers out. Yes, Rob, I'm all over that, my friend. Get these scummers out, 100%, my friend. So JJ, 14 years old, absolutely ridiculous. Just an absolute talent already. Just unbelievable. Let's see if I can find you a couple of little bits on him from Simon Stone. So basically, 14 years old, he's been asked to train with the first team this season. He made his under 18s against where are we? So he made his under 18s Premier League, playing brilliantly in a 1-0 win. JD, he's too young to play in the FA Cup this year. The rules say players must be born before 31st of August 2010, but it hasn't stopped him from playing in other age groups. Just 14 years old and being called up to the first team. Now, if that doesn't epitomise what this club is about, if that doesn't epitomise, you've got the Glazers who have no idea what this club is about. A Agume for me, John O'Connor, welcome, my friend. Yeah, Agume for me as well. I think he's Agume for me. Where I think so, I think Stiller again. Right. All I'm going to say, I think any midfielder pretty much that we get now is going to be better than Ugarte and a Casemiro. That's where I'm at on it right now. I would take him. I'd take a Stiller. I really would take him. I like him a lot. What we did speak about, and I will talk about this again as well, is that what Amarin wants in his system is he's not necessarily concerned about a defensive midfielder as such. What Amarin wants is he almost wants wingers, but in the centre midfield position. So what I mean by that is he wants his CMs to run up and down. So he basically wants them to go up and down that line. Maybe he wants somebody who's a bit more defensive and somebody who's a bit more offensive. But ultimately, what he wants is he wants his CMs to play in that line on either side, kind of up and down from a box to box. So what he wants is when they go forward, maybe one stays back and one goes forward, and then when they come backwards, like they both come back, because then when the fullbacks push up, maybe one of the CMs can come back. So he's not really bothered necessarily about a defensive CM and an offensive. What he wants is he wants an all-rounder. He wants two all-rounders. If one is a bit more defensive, then that's fine. If one's a bit more offensive, so what you'd really want in a perfect world is if you couldn't get a Belieber, what you'd want to have is a Gume and a Stiller. So you're going to have them both there. A Gume is a bit more of a tackler, a bit more of a defensive player, and Stiller's more that cruise type. So you kind of want those two, and I think that's ultimately what we're trying to aim for. But what is it we're trying to do? So I think for me, Agume, would probably be the one for now, but I'd go get them both. I'd want them both, and whilst Fernandez is still here, we can't get them both. I think it's one or the other. My preference would be on an Agume. I still like that Belieber type. I want that engine room who can get up and down, a high tackler presser. But Stiller for me is okay as well. I just think we need anybody else in that midfield. Joe says, I'm worried that Agume is just civil sources who are saying, yeah, I'd love to get that player, but it looks like it was only Spanish. And Joe, again, I don't disagree with you. These are names that we've mentioned here. Again, it's gone really quiet. It's gone really quiet on him. Stiller as well is it's gone a little bit not quiet because he's just come out today as well. But there is nothing out there saying that we are making bids. We're doing this. There is another side to this as well. Is that there are reports out there as well, basically saying that we might not do any more business. We might actually take the budget for a CM for this season and go Belieber or maybe another next season. So we may not even get a CM. I think we will. Also, the goalkeeping situation as well needs to be resolved. Amarin right now has not been told he's not the number one. So as United right now are putting it out there that Onana is the number one, he's not been told he's not the number one. So I think we just need to watch this space. I think what needs to happen in the next couple of days is, unless we start seeing bids and contact for Stuttgart and Seville and for these players, I think we need to be prepared. We're not doing any more business. I think we should. Luis, for me, from Juventus, I think is an absolute travesty that we couldn't get him on a loan. If we wanted to put more budget to next season, why not just do that loan deal? You can't compete. Keeper for me is more of. I think you can argue. I think you could argue both things, my friend. I think that you could. I demand both. I think we're so short in both. I think that you could argue CM. You could argue that the goalkeeper is probably more important on the basis that we've probably got enough midfielders to scrape through. We've got Mainoo, Ugarte. You could scrape through with those because we've got more options. A goalkeeper, we haven't. We've got no other option other than two of the worst keepers. so we need one in there. You then could argue that Onana stats are not actually that bad. I'm not trying to defend him, but you could argue from a statistical stat perspective that actually Onana is not that bad. And you go for the CM position. The problem is, as we all know, stats hide a lot of truth. So I would demand both. If I had to pick one, I'd probably go CM because I think that's probably the most important position. But I think very, very close. Very, very close. Rob says, in an ideal world, another striker, 2 midfield. Yeah, I agree, mate. I agree. Rob, totally agree with you, my friend. I think we are... Ranić was right. We need basically our whole new team. I hope next season, we get rid of the likes of a Luke Shaw. We get rid of Ugarte even next season. Next season, we still may have to get rid of a Rashford next season, an Anthony next season, a Hojlund next season. We still may need to get rid of those players as well. So, yeah, we are far away from a title-winning side. Now, I think our transfer business is over. I hope I'm not wrong, but everything is pointing to we're a closed shop on the outs now. I don't disagree with that, Joel. I demand more players, mate, but it doesn't surprise me. We've got 10 days left, I think it is. What can we do in those 10 days? I really don't know. And we've got to get rid of 4 players. So I'm hoping you're wrong, my friend, but you might be right on this one. Yeah, exactly. That's why it's our priority. Again, if you compare Onana and... Yeah, do you know what, Joel? That's really scary. Onana, statistically, is better. And that terrifies me because he really isn't. Well, do you think Onana will be back in for Sunday? If not, it will be interesting. That is what's going around, Rob. That is what is going around, is that if Onana is not back for Sunday, now they're just saying that it is literally just a hamstring injury. He's only played 3 internal games and all this sort of stuff. If Onana's back on Sunday, then the writing's on the wall. Do I think he'll be back on Sunday? Yes. If he's not, then maybe there is a conversation to be had. I think Sene Lemens... I don't know why we're not doing that deal. I don't know why. £17 million, £18 million. I don't know why we're not doing that deal. So if Onana's not in goal on Sunday, then I think we could be questioning this. But we have to realise, I think the window closes in 10 days. So the stuff needs to be happening now and tomorrow. Our keepers are going to cost us games. Do you know what? You can't compete, right? One of the things that we spoke about on here, and one of the things that I've been talking about when we've been speaking about the transfer window and we've been giving it scores and that kind of stuff, one of my vocal points, and the same as everyone else on here, is that my worry about the goalkeeper situation was, imagine a scenario, and I'm going to have to start to clip up myself on here, and you can clip me up as well, right? It's basically, one of the things that I said is, imagine you're going to get games in the Premier League where you are winning possession, and you're going to get days where you're going to have chance after chance after chance, and you can't put the ball in the back of the net. It's a really, really close game. You could have 20 shots on goal, and what's going to cost you is a keeper mistake. And sometimes those games happen. You see them all of the time. The team has possession, shots on goal. They just can't put the ball in the back of the net. And the other team, because we're dealing with the Premier League, will just score a goal. And that's what exactly happened. I wasn't expecting it to happen that fast. But that's what happened. And the thing is, right, the goalkeeper is unlike any other position on the pitch. If you're a striker and you miss a chance, you know you're going to get like another chance. That's not really going to impact the team really. If you're a midfielder and you misplace a pass, again, it's not going to really impact. You could misplace 3 out of 10 passes, right? You're a striker, you may score 1 in 4, right? If you're a keeper and you have 5 shots against you and you let in 1 or you let in 2, there is nowhere to hide. So this is why the goalkeeper position is so important, because Onana could make 20 saves. If he lets in 2, it doesn't matter. Like if he lets in, for every, say, 10 shots he saves, he might let in 3 or 4. Maybe not in like the same game, but the goalkeeper position is unlike any other position on the pitch, is whereby if you make a mistake, it actually costs you the game. You can argue that about the striker as well, but a goalkeeper will cost you goals, and as we know, goals win games. So for me, the goalkeeper position is so unique in the fact that not only does it cost you goals, but it impacts the whole team. It impacts the defence because they know they can't trust the man behind them. It makes the team nervous. It makes the strikers know that they've got to score. If they get a chance, and they've got to score because they know the keeper is going to make an error. So for me, I think the goalkeeper is fundamental, and we need to do something about that as well. Indiala News says, as reported already by TalkSport, are interested in Stiller, but we can confirm further exclusive. Okay. Indiala, I like those guys. I do. I have seen them. There has been a couple of bits and bobs that have come out about them, but they tend to be good and stuff. So that is a good source. According to reliable sources, his agent Vola Struth from Sports 360 had a meeting with officials in London yesterday. I'm liking this Agent Joel. I do not trust Indiala, but this was a big thing. Indicator. They've got a few things right and a few things wrong, and there's been a couple of things about them, but they are quite big, aren't they? So again, when Indicator start saying stuff, I know they're not top tier, but it's interesting when those accounts start to talk, because sometimes there is something in it. It's like Ross Harwood, right? I bigged him up. And he was right on Shesko, and he was right on the Belieber sort of timeline. But at the end of the day, the one thing about a source that I appreciate is when they come out and they say that they're wrong about stuff. So I'll come out and I'll say when I'm wrong, but when a source doesn't come out and say, well, actually, do you know what, we got this wrong, then that trust is gone, right? Rob says, the Arsenal game already cost us 3 points. We definitely need a top keeper. Even if Onana is fit for Sunday, I would play Heaton. Rob, I think that I wouldn't play Heaton on the basis, I think there's a myth around him in terms of he's better. Binder for me, I know this sounds crazy, but Binder for me, I'd rather him in goal right now. I think his play's better than Onana. That's the only reason why I would keep him in goal, is because I think he's better than Onana. Heaton, I'd play Heaton if Binder was injured and Onana was the only fit option. Onana shouldn't get back in that team at all. So I think Binder, for me, should keep his place. Is that going to happen? I do think Onana's back. I really, really do. Our defenders don't trust the keepers. Exactly, mate. I agree with you completely. Last season, you could see it. You could see it in every single shot, in every single game. It all starts from the goalkeeper, and no one trusts him. I think he's a good guy, but I think that you're right on that one. I was wrong about Shesko for sure. The whole Shesko thing didn't make sense. He could have gotten double wages and a massive signing on. So my logic said he would go. And again, Joel, right? How brilliant is this though, right? Like, we've all got our opinions, and Joel, you're very much like me. I think you base on logic and you base on, what you've learned from the past or what you think. And how good is it? Like, we all have our opinions, and sometimes we're right, sometimes we're wrong. And I was Shesko in, because for me at that point that made more sense to me, and I went with that. But the Belieber thing, I went in on that as well, and because from what I logically thought a sound INEOS would do, and I was on that one, I was out by a long shot. But this is the beauty of what we do here. We go on and we talk about stuff. You guys on here, like, how many times have you talking about Stiller? You've talking about Agume, like, Joel. You said so many different names in this chat, and how many of them have become, like, how many of them have we spoken about? Like, how many are now potentially targets? And this is why we do the things that we do, is because we love this club, right? And you guys in this chat are fantastic, because you always get your names in there. And this is what we do on here extremely well, is that we debate this stuff out from a logical view. And most of the time, one of us on here get it right. And that's what I love about this chat. Shesko will come good. It just needs time to gel and understand. Yeah, agreed. I think Shesko, for me, is going to be good. I like him. Imagine now in this league, we've got Hojlund, who's obviously the top dog. Shesko and Ekitike looks pretty good. Gyökeres, for me, so far, has looked the worst. I think he'll come good. I do think he'll come good, but Gyökeres, for me, so far, has been one of the worst. But let's see how they get on with that one. So that was a roundup, guys. I was early on Belieber that it wouldn't happen. Exactly, Joe. You were spot on, mate, on that one. I heard what Whitwell was saying. Oh boy, I got an unpopular, a different channel for saying it was not going to happen. But Joel, do you know what, mate? You got it right, mate. You again, and this is what I love about this, is that we don't. You get the odd person in here that are gonna, one of the things that I promote on here, or one of the things I do try to say on here, is that we're all going to have our opinions, right? Shouldn't be shouted down for having a different opinion, because that is what this is about. This is about debate. This is not a channel where I pretend that you guys have got a voice. This is not a channel where I pretend that, I'm the one that talks because, I'm here. But it's not all about my opinions. I try to just report the news, report what I think is right, give you my logical opinion, and then we open it up for debate. So Joe, it sort of pains me to hear that I think more channels should be open to different opinions. And as much as I wanted that deal to happen, people like yourselves were saying, it's not going to happen. People on X were saying that it's not going to happen. And it's just opinions. So I really believe that people shouldn't be called out for their opinions. And sometimes we're going to be right. Joe, on this occasion, you were right about that particular thing, which is wrong, right? Because obviously we wanted that deal to happen. But these things are definitely sent to try us. You can't compete. Says if we play like we did against Arsenal, we should win the next 3 games. Fulham being the hardest. Yep. And again, to that point, is about consistency, right? Consistency. And this is what I want to see. Consistency in the next game. Let's go and win it. Amrin needs a win, like more than anything else. If Amrin doesn't win the next game, it's 7 wins out of 29. And this is what he needs to start doing now. He needs to start getting this ratio up. Do you think Sesko will start on Sunday? Who would you start on Sunday? Oh, good question, Rob. I'm going to try and do a watch along for that as well. I don't think the game's on UK TV, is it? I don't think, but I'll find a way to watch it. So what would I do on Sunday, Rob? I would go Binder in goal. I would go Ahmad, Dorgu as wing backs. I would go. I'd go Mazraoui. I'd go De Ligt and Yoro. I would go Mainoo and I'd go Fernandez. And I'd go Cunha. I'd go in Burmo and I'd go Shesko up front. You could even argue that you could put Mason Mount in the Mainoo role. I don't want to do that, but I think Mainoo should start. But Joel, you're right. It'd be very hard to take Mount out of the team the way he destroyed Arsenal. I wonder if he plays Mount and Bruno in the midfield. Bruno becomes more the defensive CM and Mount's more the 8. So I wonder if he does that or whether, because we've seen it before, whether he plays Mount because he's played Mount as a wing back, hasn't he? So I think it's really that's what I would go with. I think Mainoo, Fernandez, Cunha, Mbeumo, Shesko, Dorgu, Ahmad, Yoro, De Ligt, and either Mazraoui or Heaven. But Mason Mount has played really well. So why would you take him out of the team? So that I don't know what he does with Mount. That's the only thing. That does he play Mount instead of a Mainoo, and then he an Ugarte, and he puts Fernandez and Mount in those two centre midfield positions. That is a good question. I do not know, but let's see what happens. So yeah, I will be doing a watch along for that. We've just not got to overplay Mount. Exactly, and that's another consideration as well, isn't it? Is that he needs to manage his minutes. So maybe this is a good game to maybe rest Mount in, but then we've got one game a week. So I think that this is it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks to figure out what his team is. I don't know if he does it game to game based on the training that he sees in the week. But I think it's going to be really difficult to, as Joel says, it's going to be really difficult not to play Mount. This is some good news about Mount. He's not been injured. Exactly, Joel. Exactly. And I want to see the Mason Mount that we were supposed to be getting. That for me is the most important thing. So 2 hours, guys. 2 hours, 15 minutes. Brilliant, guys. I am going to go. It's been amazing chat. As always, the time here with you guys absolutely flies by. It's ridiculous how much it flies by. I feel very privileged to be in this position to talk to you guys and you respond back. And as I always say this, it's really important to acknowledge this. You guys spend time here with each other, talking to each other, giving me your time of day. And that's the one thing in life you can't buy time. It's really so important to acknowledge you guys on that, is that you can't buy time, and you spent minutes, hours with me on here talking about stuff that we love. I genuinely can't thank you enough for the support that you give me and the support that you give the channel, the way that you respect each other in the chat. I value your opinions. You do have an impact on me as well, and how I see the club and players and things like that as well. So I think this is just an amazing chat, and I feel very, very fortunate to be part of this. Yeah, Joel, you do need. Oh yeah, Joel, like, how was your garden design, or your garden thing that you made? Because you did a garden thing, right? It was your plan for a greenhouse or something, wasn't it? Yeah, so thank you to You Can't Compete, Joel, Rob, see who else is in the chat today. I've shouted you all out. We've got obviously got Jar, we've got United CYP in there. Got some good chats in there today, my friend. Chief Herb as always, legend of the chat. We've got Danny B, of course. We've got Danny B in there. We've got Nakaritsu. Apologies if I've destroyed your name. We've got, I don't want to miss anybody. Mark Harris, as always, brings us back down to earth. I love it. We've got Singh, Martin, Steve C. Who else have we got on there? Martin Fay, I've said that already. Tulip Plays as well, legend of the chat as well. So, guys, it's an absolute. So Jamie Vargas is in there as well. So, guys, I can't thank you enough. That it's just. I love doing this show. I'm going to go to bed now after a long day, long flight. But yeah, I'll if anything else does break, I'll jump back on. I'm now at home. I'll jump on the phone. I'll jump on whatever it is, and I will let you guys know. Joe says, I've not started on the big one yet. They need to get me some new measurements starting it on Monday. I did make an indoor garden that was standing on top of water though. Very cool, Joel. I'm liking that, my friend. Well, let me know how it all goes. I will be back tomorrow at some point with the news and whatever else. And take care of yourselves. Have a good rest of your day, evening, morning, whatever you guys are doing, including when you're building your indoor gardens. And I'll see you guys on the next one. So take care of yourselves, and I'll see you very soon. Good night.